up in the Hindu culture and in Hinduism. There are many, obviously, God-fearing Hindus and stuff. But the literature is a lot of myths and stories.
Exactly.
But many of these don't have archaeological confirmations. It sounds like the Bible is definitely a real book describing real people in real locations.
Exactly.
Who had real experiences with a very real God.
Exactly. And in Hinduism and many of these Eastern religions, it's more ephemeral. They're ideas, philosophies, that kind of thing. This is something that's rooted in everyday life. This is rooted in history. And it makes, God is he's a God who interacts in human history, interacts in our lives. And so that is something that is very, very unique and really makes the Bible unique when compared to all these other major religions out there. You're not going to find an Institute of Hindu Archaeology or Buddhist archaeology or Taoist archaeology because it doesn't lend itself to that kind of investigation.
That's incredible. Just more evidence for why we can trust the scriptures.
That's right.
But I got one more question for you.
Yeah.
As someone who has studied the ancient Near Eastern accounts, as you look at these other cultures and their description of history, whether it's creationism, whether it's flood, whether it's some of their kings. What do you notice as distinctives of biblical history versus these other ancient Near Eastern accounts in regards to their understanding of God, of humanity? What do you notice are clear differences here?
Oh, I have a list of 24 of those, so it's going to be a little bit more than what we can handle here. But there's definitely a difference between what I would refer to and other scholars have referred to as the mythical view, which the Bible has been accused of, but it really doesn't fit into that genre at all. The mythical view, which is polytheistic, which is pantheistic, where the cosmos and God are the same in one. The Bible teaches that that God is the creator and separate from the cosmos, and it's something very, very different. That allows him to interact in the cosmos. Otherwise, we just all are really part of God, right? In the end, when you boil it down. The other thing that is really, when I compare it to other literature in the ancient Near East, which I've read a lot of, it's very different because those are also polytheistic. Those are all, they worship nature. They deified everything in nature, sun and moon obviously, but then everything else as well.
Yeah, one account that I read, they oftentimes, these other creation accounts, for example, they start off with, there was the universe, and then there was a cow, and then the cow gave birth to a god. So in other words, the universe was in existence oftentimes well before the deity shows up.
Right.
Whereas the scripture said, wait a minute, God was there in the beginning. God created the heavens and earth. So nature and the universe follows from God's creation as opposed to being something before him.
Right. It's very different. Many of these myths in the ancient world are actually, they're theogonies, not cosmologies. They're theogonies. They actually describe the creation of the universe as gods, and they're kind of personified. I mean, the Egyptians had 22,000 gods. Everything was deified. I think in Hinduism, that has been multiplied to 33 million gods, right? So that's
what was that word
continuation.
You used? What was that word? Theogony?
Theogony. It's a theogony. It's a creation of gods by the gods.
Wow. So in these other accounts, you see the creation of gods, whereas the scriptural account says no. God has always been there.
You look at Greek and Roman mythology, and the gods are very capricious. They're very much like us. They have relations. They have children. They get into fights. They get into conflict. Exactly. You don't have that in the Bible. There's one God. He's sovereign. He's wonderful. He creates a perfect world, and he finds a solution for humanity in that imperfect world after sin enters. And there's something amazing about that. The other thing that is really amazing in the Bible, while we're on this tangent a little bit, is this. When I read the Bible, and I read ancient Egyptian texts, for example, I'm an Egyptologist, and in the Egyptian texts, the Egyptians are always victorious in their military campaigns. There's never an admittance of defeat, ever. You read the Babylonian texts, the Hittite texts, the Assyrian texts.
They get rid of it. They get rid of
the defeats, or they're quiet about them. They never talk about them at all. You read the Bible, it's filled with God's people's triumphs as well as their defeats. They're the things that they did well and the things that they really didn't do well at all on.
So what you're describing essentially is this evidence for this embarrassment evidence seems to actually work in in favor of the accuracy of Scripture.
I think the Bible gives us a more accurate account of what really happened in the ancient world, whereas many of these, and of course you talk to an Egyptologist or an Assyriologist or some of the experts, and they might not see it quite that way, but there's definitely an element of whitewashing history where you don't have that in the Bible, I think. And the Bible gives us then, as a result of that, the Bible gives us not only the realities of what people faced back then, like we do today, but it also gives us direction on how to deal with those realities from a biblical perspective.
I love what you're saying. The Bible tells us the truth about God's goodness, but also tells us the truth about man's brokenness. Dr. Hasel, I've appreciated this first segment. We've been talking with Dr. Michael Hasel about landmark archaeological findings that sent ripples around the world. There's more to uncover, so don't go away.